Why U.S. politics is collapsing. It's not ideology, it's trust. After every recent election where a democratic socialist or self-described progressive outsider scores an upset victory, the same debate erupts. Is America really moving that far to the left? We saw it with Mayor Zohran Mamdani's rise in New York, and before his campaign collapsed, Graham Platner's meteoric rise in Maine sparked similar headlines. Now, as Democrats look to replace him, many are rallying around Troy Jackson, a self-described pickup truck progressive. Conventional wisdom says these victories mean the country is embracing increasingly liberal ideas. But I don't think that's what's happening. The rise of democratic socialism isn't the main story here. It's a symptom. The real story is that millions of Americans have lost confidence in the institutions they once trusted to solve problems, create opportunity, and make government work. When confidence in institutions collapses, voters don't necessarily move left or right. They become far more willing to embrace candidates who promise to disrupt the status quo. Gallup's latest polling is a flashing warning light. Confidence in America's institutions remains near historic lows. Congress, for example, commands the confidence of just 9% of Americans. Trust in the criminal justice system, organized religion, higher education, big business, and many other institutions Americans once relied upon has eroded dramatically over the past generation. Look beyond the individual numbers, and a striking pattern emerges. This isn't a crisis in one institution. It's a crisis of confidence in the entire system. This is an important distinction because politics doesn't happen in a vacuum. Voters don't evaluate candidates based solely on policy positions. They also evaluate whether the institutions surrounding those policies are capable of delivering results. When Americans stop believing those institutions work, they stop rewarding candidates who promise incremental change. They start looking for alternatives. Some find them on the right, some on the left, but almost all of them are looking for outsiders. That's what made Platner's campaign so compelling before it unraveled. His appeal wasn't simply about progressive policy. He represented a rejection of politics as usual. His outsider status became part of his message. The same is true of Mamdani. Whether you agree with his policies or not, his supporters aren't just voting for a platform. They are voting for disruption. They are voting against institutions they believe have failed them. And look at what happened in Maine after Platner exited the race. Many Democrats didn't immediately search for the safest establishment replacement. Instead, attention quickly shifted to Jackson, a candidate who proudly brands himself a pickup truck progressive and has built his career positioning himself as a champion of working people against entrenched interests. Different state, different ideology, but the same political demand. We're seeing versions of this story play out across the country. Candidates who promise to challenge institutions are outperforming candidates who promise simply to manage them. The labels vary, but the frustration does not. This is why I believe we continue to misread this political moment. The defining divide in American politics is no longer simply Democrat versus Republican, nor is it liberal versus conservative. Increasingly, it is establishment versus anti-establishment, institution versus outsider. The rise of democratic socialism is one manifestation of that shift, and right-wing populism is another. They are different political expressions of the same underlying condition. Millions of Americans no longer believe the institutions around them are capable of solving the problems they face. This should concern all of us. A healthy democracy depends on citizens believing that its institutions, while imperfect, are fundamentally legitimate and capable of correcting mistakes, enforcing rules fairly, and delivering results. When that confidence disappears, disruption becomes more attractive than stability. History tells us that people rarely embrace political movements on the fringe simply because they wake up one day with a new ideology. They do it because they lose confidence in the institutions that once made moderation feel sufficient. That is why I don't believe the rise of democratic socialism is the biggest story in American politics. The bigger story is the collapse of confidence that made its rise possible. Until our institutions begin earning back the confidence of the American people, we shouldn't be surprised to see more candidates like Zohran Mamdani, Graham Platner, or Troy Jackson, because they aren't the cause of this political moment. They're the consequence of it.